All right, here we go. Today we have a sports media legend in the building, Skip Bayless. Welcome to VladTV.
Well, one legend deserves another because you are the legend of this business.
Thank you, man. That means a lot coming from someone like you.
Thank you.
We actually ran into each other, I don't know, maybe like 2 years ago.
Yep.
At Cipriani's restaurant.
Mr. C's.
It was Mr. C's at the time.
Yep.
And we talked about doing this for a while, and it finally happened.
Yeah. Sorry we kept going back and forth, but life is crazy, and here we are.
Yeah, thank you to your beautiful wife that actually helped arrange all
Ernestine.
this.
Yeah,
she was the one that made it happen.
Wing here.
She's right there. All right, it's your first time here. I want to start at the very beginning. You grew up in Oklahoma City.
I did.
Okay.
Yep.
And your real name is not Skip.
Well, the truth is my real name is Skip, but the fact is that my father was John Edward I, and I was the firstborn. So as he was dating or courting or whatever they did back in the day, my mother, neither of them got through high school, and they had some weird vibe between them where, weirdly, my father called my mother Skipper, as in you're the skipper of the ship. It was some pet nickname that he had for her. And so I was the firstborn, and they had just decided, well, we'll just name him after you, so he'll be John Edward II. Mm-hmm. So upon seeing me, according to my mother, in the hospital, my father said, oh, there's my little Skipper. And my mother, it just hit her the right way. And so she started calling me Skip. So he was calling her Skipper, and suddenly it's shortened to Skip, or sometimes Skipper for me. And as God is my witness, from day one, I was never, ever called John, Edward, or John by either of my parents one time in my life. Not ever, ever, ever. So
Yeah.
from the start, all I knew was Skip. So when I went to, I got through grade school, okay, but when I went to junior high school, each roll call in each of the classes that you went through for the 6 hours of school, they would say John Edward, and the kids from my grade school would look at me like, what? John Edward? Because nobody had ever heard that name before. And it drove me so crazy that I eventually had it legally changed to Skip. So, so as much as you say, well, John Edward, I am legally Skip, and in my head, I was always legally Skip. And by the way, I like Skip. I don't know, it's just unusual and it works for me. So
I love Skip.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Well, you mentioned your parents didn't graduate from high school, and your dad ended up opening a barbecue restaurant called the Hickory House. Mm-hmm. And it never really did well, though. It always struggled.
It was up and down. If you know the restaurant business at all, it comes and it goes. It's the most fickle business. It drove my father to drink and my mother to drink, and basically ruined my father's life. He just couldn't live with the unpredictability of it, because they come and then they don't come. And it was more of a lunch than a dinner business. And so you better bust it at lunch. You better have it. And some weeks, for whatever reason, people just didn't want to come to the Hickory House for lunch. And it had a reputation on the south side of Oklahoma City, which is the rougher side. We grew up, lived on the northwest side, not that it was upper crusty, but it was a little better than the south side. And yet we would have a little money, and then we wouldn't have any money. So it just came and went. And it was, to me, it was a dark cloud that hung over our family. I wouldn't recommend the business to anybody, because it's, my mother always used to say, it's always about buying the meat. That the essence of the restaurant business is you have to buy the meat just enough to get you through. But if you buy too much meat, it's going to spoil and you're going to lose money. So you have to learn how to buy just enough to meet the demand, and then you can make some money. And some weeks, anyway, it's a terrible existence, to tell you the truth. And maybe it's because I was forced to work in the Hickory House from day one. Seriously, from the time I was old enough to walk, 3, 4 years old, my father would force me to go with him to work, and I hated it. I just didn't have any aptitude for it, and so I grew up in the kitchen doing what they call preparation work back in the day before they had the right technology for all this, but you had to do the preparation work with your hands and actually chop up the celery and the green peppers, and I nearly cut this finger off one time on a wet green pepper because I was bored and it just slipped right off and just slashed my finger. But anyway, I just didn't like it. My younger brother, 2 years younger, loved it, and it ended up being his springboard to success.
Well, your brother, Rick, went on to win a James Beard Award. He has a restaurant with a Michelin star, and Obama asked him to be the White House chef, but he turned him down?
He did.
Crazy.
He won 2 James Beard Awards, one for chef and one for restaurateur. And his Topolobampo room became Obama's favorite restaurant in Chicago. Obama, of course, from Chicago. And when he did get elected, he asked my brother to be the White House chef. And the one thing that our father taught us about the restaurant business is you cannot be an absentee owner, or they will steal from you, they'll rob from you, it'll just fall apart without your hands-on daily overseeing of the staff and the quality of the product and the food. And he just couldn't do it because he has several restaurants in Chicago, and he was afraid if he left to go be the White House chef for 4 years that he might lose all of his successful restaurants in Chicago. But he was obviously honored at the offer.
Well, yeah, I mean, he also had TV shows. He was nominated for Emmys and so forth. So the fact that 2, poor kids from Oklahoma went on to become, established in the media business.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
You know what? I'm extremely proud of what I call my little brother. And we were never close growing up because our home was broken and it was just a bad scene. But I'm just very proud of him. And when I do go back occasionally to Oklahoma City, one of the first things I do is I take the rent car or whatever we're doing, and I go to 43rd Street to our birth house where we were both born. We had a sister who came 7 years after me, but we had moved to another house. But I go to our birth house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 43rd Street off May Avenue in Oklahoma City, for those who know it. And I just sit in front of it for 5 or 10 minutes. Ernestine, my wife, has done this with me because I just reflect on how did we get out of there? How did we escape? We shared a bedroom, my parents across the hall and my brother and I in this bedroom. And we had bunk beds, a bunk bed, I should say. And it was such a rough upbringing. It was so turbulent for both of us in very different ways that it's billions to one against us to get out of there and to get to where we were, where we got to be in Chicago. And I've worked all over the place in New York and LA. It was billions to one against.
Yeah.
So thank you, God, for all of the above.
Well, you said you were raised by a black woman?
Yeah, because my home was so broken that I often got left at my grandmother's house because my parents were both pretty much disasters. And both of them, to their credit, they both worked the Hickory House full time. So they were both having their alcohol problems. But a lot of times I just lived at my grandmother's. My grandmother traveled for her work, and she wasn't a wealthy woman, but they could afford to have a woman who kept their house. And this wasn't like the old South. This was Oklahoma. It's just different there. It's not deep, dark, racist. This wasn't like the movie The Help. This is a woman named Katie Bell Henderson, who was revered in the household as really the matriarch of the household. She ran the household for me and my cousins who would interact and come and go. But I was there a lot, and I clicked with Katie Bell right away, and she loved me, and she was way more of a mother to me than my actual mother was. And everything I learned about right and wrong, about life, about how to live life the right way, came from Katie Bell. She's very dear to my heart, and I wish I'd understood how much she meant to me while she was raising me, but I didn't, because I was the firstborn. So all this was new to me. I didn't have big brothers and sisters to show me the way, but she showed me the way in ways I didn't even comprehend at the time. And just a quick story to tie the bow around Katie Bell. My wife will occasionally talk to, what do we call them, shamans? And I never really believed in shamans, but she met one, connected with one a few years back. What was his name? Joseph. His name was Joseph, in New York City, a black man from Louisiana, I believe from New Orleans. And my wife finally convinced me to do a reading with Joseph, which I didn't completely buy into, but I said, okay, I'll try it. And it's just a telephone conversation. And I hadn't been on the phone with Joseph for a minute. And he said, oh, somebody wants to join. And I'm like, yeah. And so I'm anticipating it's going to be my deceased mother, because that would be the obvious choice. And I had kind of a love-hate relationship with my mother, and I didn't connect with Joseph to try to reconnect with my mother from the afterlife. But he said, no, it's a black woman. A black woman? Because I hadn't thought of Katie Bell in a long time. And he said, yeah, it's a black woman. And then I thought, well, there's only one in my life who would have mattered that much. I said, Katie Bell? He said, yeah, it's Katie Bell. She wants you to know how proud she is of you. And it just rocked me. And I believed in Joseph from that point forward, only because how could he have known about Katie Bell? Because I had not talked about her in interviews at that point. So anyway, thank you, Katie Bell.
Well, at one point, your dad divorced your mom, but he ran off with her best friend?
Correct.
So that...
woman named Judy, who lived down the block from us.
Yeah,
And they moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and tried to open another little hole-in-the-wall barbecue place that was on a lower level, if possible, than the Hickory House, that failed miserably, and they both failed, and he didn't last much longer. And he died from cirrhosis of the liver, just acute alcoholism, at 49 years of age.
Wow, that young.
Yeah.
And then, of course, your mom, because of that whole situation, she got deeper into alcohol, and that kind of created a whole
and she had a near-fatal car wreck, and I had left home by then, and to the credit of my younger brother and sister, they basically dragged her to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting one Monday night, and to her credit, she gave in and started to attend the meetings every Monday night for the rest of her life. And she stayed sober for the last probably 35 years of her life.
Wow.
To her credit.
Okay.
Yes. She saved herself.
Well, while this was happening, you're in high school, you start getting into sports.
Yep.
And basketball was your main focus.
Well, baseball really was.
Oh, it was baseball?
Yeah, baseball is my sport. Yeah.
Okay. But you also played basketball.
I did.
Okay. But then there was a problem with your team, because I guess the coach had a son on the same team, and he gave
yes,
him
he did.
all your minutes, essentially?
Yeah. So I was really good at basketball in 8th and 9th grade. And from 8th to 9th, you go across the street to the big high school, and they had a very successful program with a very successful coach. And I was no longer coached by the coach who loved me in 8th grade, 9th grade. And all of a sudden I'm at the high school, and the coach never liked me. And I don't know why. I can guess. I was run and gun. I was dribble it past half court and jack it up. And there was no 3-point line yet. So I'm shooting 3-point shots that count 2. And the math didn't work for my high school coach. And I don't blame him, but it's just my nature just to shoot. And in 8th grade, the coach loved it because we were beating a lot of 9th grade teams because we would just run and shoot it because we're just athletic. And yet it was meat and potatoes in high school basketball, a lot of bang the ball into the post to the big guys. And so I didn't fit to start with. And then it was my junior year. The coach's name was Don Vanpool, and he transferred in from another high school in Oklahoma City called Southeast. I was at Northwest High School, and he transferred in Donnie Vanpool, his son, and I saw the handwriting on the wall. So when I was a senior, I thought I would be a starter. I should have been a starter. And instead, Donnie Vanpool started ahead of me, and it just tore my heart out. And yeah, he took all my minutes. And I came off the bench, and I had a few decent games, but mostly just playing defense. So it was pretty much a disaster. Baseball was good for me. I was a good player. I lettered when I was a sophomore and started for 2 years, my junior and senior year. So that was fun and that was great, but basketball was a disaster.
Well, later in life, it was always brought up that you averaged 1.4 points per game during your high school basketball career.
And when that came up, I was surprised that I even averaged that much. No, seriously, because I did start 3 games when he was mad at Donnie, but it was the situation where I knew if I shot one time and missed while I was on the floor, I was coming out of the game. That was the mandate. And so it's hard to score 2 points. I think I had a couple of 5-point games, but every game that I would play where I wouldn't shoot and get 0, it would pull it down, obviously.
Well, while you're still in high school, you're playing sports, but you start to write as well. And your English teacher convinced you to enter a writing contest, which got you a scholarship. To Vanderbilt?
To Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Yeah, she did. Her name was Elizabeth Burdett, and she saved my life and changed my life. And I was blessed when I was a sophomore. I was always a good student, overachiever. I never thought I was that smart, but I worked at it. I think it's children of alcoholics. You know, you tend to want to fight your way out and overachieve. I think I was always trying to impress my dad, who never had any interest in anything I ever did. So I would take my report cards home and put them on the kitchen table because they had to sign the report card to take it back. And through high school, I made all A's, except for a B in driver's ed, because nobody got an A in driver's ed because they didn't want you to think you were a great driver, you know, and get too full of yourself. But the point was that I was in an advanced English class my sophomore year that just happened to be taught by the journalism teacher, Mrs. Burdett, only because she taught one course a day to see if any of the kids could write, because she was always looking for a writer for her school paper, which was called The Shield, because we were the Knights, Northwest Knights. And so the first day of class, she assigned a book report. She said, I want it 1 page and no more than 1 page. Pick any book you want. I just want to see if, and to quote her, see if any of you people can write. So, of course, I chose a sports book because I was a sports nut. And I read it, and it was crap. It was one of those, I read it in one night because it felt like it had been written in one night.
Okay.
It was about a former New York Giants and 49ers quarterback named Y.A. Tittle, and I wanted to know more, and I learned next to nothing. So I'd never written more than my name. Neither of my parents were writers. There's nobody in my extended family who wrote or even cared about school. So I didn't know what I was doing. I sat down and ended up writing a scathing review of this book. And it just poured out of me. And I handed it in and didn't think twice about it. Week goes by. Comes Friday. The bell goes off, ending class, and Mrs. Burdett said, "Skip Bayless, I want to see you up at my desk now." And my friends were looking at me like, "What did you do?" Because she was kind of a scary-looking woman, kind of witch-like in a good way, big, giant black hair, big red lipstick, and kind of a screechy, scary voice, like the Bad Witch in The Wizard of Oz. And I kind of eased up to the desk, and I'd never talked to her before, and she just said, "You're coming into journalism." And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have any interest in journalism." And she said, "Well, it doesn't matter because you're going to write me 2 sports columns a week because you can write." Huh. I said, "I don't know anything about all the journal. I don't know how to write headlines." She said, "You don't have to do any of that. Just write me 2 sports columns a week, and you don't have to participate in any of the rest of the class, or just do that. And that's all we need are your 2 sports columns a week." And I started, and it started to click and work. And I kept telling her, I'm playing on teams that I'm writing about. That's unheard of. And she said, "It's okay. It's okay because you have inside insight into what's happening on the team." And the climax of that was I played on a baseball team my senior year that wasn't very good. I was probably the best player on the team, but we didn't like the coach. And when the season crumbled at the end of the season, I wrote a scathing column about my coach of the team I was playing for as the quote unquote best player. And he was furious and threatened to have me, he used the word killed, he did. He went so far as to, the late, great Winston Havenstrite was his name. And I learned a lot from him, but he was a psycho to me, and I wrote that. So that was the forerunner of everything I was about to do in the media world. And again, all this was new to me, and I didn't think about it. I just did it. I just kind of went on instinct and gut level reaction to what I saw. And so as usual, I wrote what I saw, and that's what I saw. And my teammates loved it. And they all quietly came to me and said, "Way to go. That was so good. You nailed it," and that he deserved it. So that was me. That's what was about to come and what had just spilled out. And then she, unbeknownst to me, entered me in a scholarship at Vanderbilt called the Grantland Rice Scholarship, and they give 1 a year, and it is full. It's a full ride to Vanderbilt. I forget what it was worth at the time, like $25,000, and this is in 1970. That was like ridiculous money. And there is no way my mother at that point could have afforded to send me to Vanderbilt University. I didn't know what it was. I'd not seen it. And they don't pick that scholarship until late in the year. I know now kids know where they're going, like when they're sophomores in high school. But I thought I was just going to go to the University of Oklahoma like everybody else in my senior class, it seemed like. And I walked in after baseball practice early May of my senior year of high school. We're near graduation. And there was a note my mom left on the table, said somebody called from area code 615. And when I saw that, that's Nashville, Tennessee, where Vanderbilt is. And as soon as I saw 615, I said, "God, I think I just won this scholarship." I'd forgotten about it. And called the man back, and he said, "Well, we need to know either tonight or at least by tomorrow morning whether you're going to take it or not, or we'll give it to the first runner-up." And I said, "Can you give me tonight to think it over?" "Sure. Call me first thing in the morning." And I had a girlfriend I'd been with for a long time who was a year behind me. And I figured she was going to be like homecoming queen and be the belle of the ball in her senior year. And I kind of wanted to be around for that. And then I slept on it and woke up and thought, my God, this is my way out. This is, thank you, God. And I called back and said, I accept. And it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because that launched me. And the main thing it did was it freed me from my broken home childhood.
Okay, so you go to college, you major in English and history, and you worked as a sports editor of the school newspaper.
Yep.
And once you graduate, you joined the Miami Herald.
I did.
And that really set off a whole chain of jobs. Because from then, you went to the LA Times.
Yeah, in this business, you have to move up. You just have to. Especially in those days, you had to move up.
Right, because you went from the Miami Herald to the LA Times,
yes.
won some awards there.
Yep.
Then you went to the Dallas Morning News.
As a columnist at age 25. Yep.
Right. Then to the Dallas Herald.
3 years later.
And you were just jumping all around at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel like I was jumping all around. It felt on time. Then I stayed in Dallas for 17 years. So all through that time, it was just that after 3 years, there was a great newspaper war in Dallas, and the Times Herald hired me away from the morning news to try to cripple the morning news because I'd become very successful as a young gun columnist. And they hired me for what at that time was reportedly the most money anybody made as a columnist in newspapers. And I don't have any way to prove that, but the Wall Street Journal wrote a piece about it.
Okay.
And that's what they said. So I'll have to take them at their word. I was at least one of the top paid columnists then I would have been 28. And it put me on the national map because it got a lot of attention. So then I stayed at the Times Herald until the morning news bought the Times Herald in 1991 and actually closed it for competitive purposes so they could jack their ad prices up or double them. So, but that was my long run in Dallas.
Was it around this time you decided that you weren't having kids? Because you have no kids to this day, right?
No kids. Ernestine and I haven't. We have a child named Hazel, who's actually a Maltese, is our dog.
Okay,
and we treat her like our child.
Not the same thing.
That's it's pretty close. I'm
no,
sure
it's not.
Yeah,
definitely someone who has
dogs.
kids.
Yeah,
No, it's not.
Okay.
I have both too. I got a Rottweiler,
okay,
English Bulldog, and
good for you.
2 kids.
There
not
you
the
go.
same thing.
So, yeah, somewhere in that period, I guess, Ernestine hates for me to talk about this, but I did have an ex-girlfriend that I was with for a while, and our big clash was over kids because she was 10 years younger than me, and her mother was pressuring her to have kids because she was adopted, and so the mother said, well, I gave you a life, give me grandkids. And so there was a lot of pressure, and you just asked me about moving so much and moving up, and I knew I wasn't finished moving because I had big goals, and I knew I was going to I needed to play the Palace in New York at some point, and I wanted to go back to LA at some point. And I knew if I started having children with her, that the roots just sink deeper and deeper, and all of a sudden you've got 3 kids and a mortgage, and you can't move.
Right.
They're in schools that they like, and she was from Dallas, born and raised, and I just couldn't do it. I tried, and we split over kids. And so that was a big strategic decision. But look, the truth is, I so despised my father that it seems like if you're not careful, if you start having kids, you'll turn into your father. That's what I feared.
Okay.
And I did not want to turn into my father to my son or my daughter. And so I decided, and I made a very painful but realistic decision to break the chain. I was going to break the chain, and I have. So.
Well, you started writing books at one point.
I did in Dallas.
You put out 3 books about the Dallas Cowboys, who were in the process of winning 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. But there was a controversial book called Hell Bent, where you said that one of the players was allegedly gay.
I didn't say that. That was just common knowledge in the locker room. And the coach suspected that he was, because the coach Barry Switzer and the quarterback Troy Aikman were at each other's throat over how the team was being coached. Remember, the initial coach was Jimmy Johnson. They'd won 2 Super Bowls with Jimmy, who then got fired after winning 2 straight Super Bowls by the owner, Jerry Jones. And Barry Switzer was hired, who coached Troy Aikman at Oklahoma, and then it blew up because his leg was broken and he ended up having to transfer to UCLA. Barry actually got him the job with Terry Donahue at UCLA. But they just clashed right away, and I was close to a lot of people who were around in what we call Switzer's camp, and I knew Barry very well. And he was so hurt that Troy was trying to get him fired that he and they all asked me about the rumors that Troy was gay. And I said, I don't have any idea whether he's gay or not, but they're out there, because a lot of players thought in the locker room they heard all the rumors. And Troy was difficult to play with and be around, but he was really great. And they knew in the end they had to just suck it up and live with his moods and his ways and his temper. And he could be very emotional and explosive, but always great. And it still worked. And by the way, they did, in spite of themselves, win a Super Bowl together that year, even though, believe it or not, Barry Switzer and Troy Aikman did not speak to each other from December 4th. I can only remember this because it was my birthday. But from December 4th through the early February Super Bowl, the coach and the quarterback refused to speak to each other. That's how bad it got. So for my book, Troy actually, I'd talked to him all year long and got along fine with him, but he called and said, are you going to write about all the gay rumors? And I said, well, I've talked to them about it. And he said, well, I want to talk to you about it. So we sat down, and if you read the book, I quote him at liberal length, just knocking down and making fun of the gay rumors, as I also quoted his agent at the time, Lee Steinberg. And if you read the book, the last thing you'll think is that Troy is gay. And the irony of what you're asking me is, the hero of that book, the knight in the most shining armor, is Troy Aikman. So if you read it, you'll see that there was definitely the rumor swirling, and Troy asked if he could address the rumor in my book, which he did, and he dispelled. And in the end, I have no idea. I don't care. I don't know. But all I know is they won the Super Bowl that year. And
right.
That was the end of that book.
And he's always denied it. He's been married twice, has kids. If he's gay, he's gay. Who cares at this point?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares at this point.
Nobody cares. And nobody really cared at that point. But you can understand.
Back then, it was a bigger deal than it is now.
Especially for a pro football player who was doing a lot of national ads for these sort of macho products like Brute Cologne or whatever it might be. And so the stereotype was, oh, wait a second. He's doing all these virile macho ads and he's gay? That's what I kept getting asked about. Is he living a double life? I don't know. And I don't care. So anyway, but in the end, they all knew they couldn't do it without him. And even though he wasn't the MVP of that Super Bowl, that he still played great down the stretch. And he rose above a lot of swirling controversy in that locker room. That whole team was just crazy. And they were, that was the wildest party team off the field there's ever been in the history of pro sports.
Really?
In the history of pro sports.
Okay.
Oh, just crazed off the field, led by Michael Irvin. And,
okay.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yes. So in the end, they had to win in spite of themselves. That's what happened, and they did. And that's why that's a fascinating read of a book to me. And I was in the middle of it.
Well, by 98, you joined the Chicago Tribune.
I did.
And you were covering the Bulls' Last Dance.
I did.
And you said something interesting. You said, even though Michael Jordan is the GOAT, that he's not a very nice person. unlike LeBron, who wants to be liked too much.
True. No, it's true.
Explain.
I had the honor and privilege of getting to know Michael in '98. You maybe have seen the documentary, The Last Dance. I was on the inside of that, thank you, God. And Michael liked me in ways that he didn't like a lot of the Chicago media that I don't know about because I hadn't been there that long, but he took to me right away, returned my phone calls, talked to me. And yet, if you know, well, if you just saw the documentary, you could just see Michael, I liked him, probably because he liked me, but he at times was not a nice guy because he was a cold-blooded basketball killer. The coldest-blooded competitor in the history of professional sports. There's never been anything like the cold-blooded killing basketball machine that was Michael Jeffrey Jordan in Chicago. Nothing like it. So obviously, LeBron's the flip side of Michael. I think, I don't know LeBron. I'm not a big fan of his, but I know a lot of people who know him very well, and I observe him very closely, and he's often too nice of a guy. He's too thin-skinned. He cares way too much about what people think. Jordan didn't care at all what people thought. In the end, he didn't care. He just wanted to rip your throat out on the basketball court. And he went 6-0 in the finals with 6 MVPs. And LeBron is wildly talented, but his intangibles are delicate and sometimes fragile, and to the point of being weak, where he's had epic collapses in big playoff series that Jordan never had one of, and LeBron's had many. I can detail them for you, but we could go on for the rest of the day talking about them. But the talent is crazy because he's 3 inches taller than Jordan, weighs 30 or 40 more pounds than Jordan. And that's where it ends. You know, like after that, the intangibles are missing in LeBron. It's what I call the clutch gene. LeBron doesn't have the clutch gene. Michael was born with the strongest clutch gene in the history of professional sports. So you've got the yin and the yang when you're trying to compare them. And on every show I've ever done, somebody is trying to make the case to me that LeBron James is the GOAT, as in greatest of all times. And it's just laughably offensive to me. It's blasphemous. It's heresy. It's just, he doesn't belong in the same sentence with Jordan. And I know because I covered Jordan. And I think anybody who knows basketball ultimately agrees. Even the kids today who don't really know Jordan, I think they know deep down when they watch the YouTube highlights, this guy he's somewhere else from LeBron.
Yeah, you actually said that Kobe is more clutch than LeBron.
No doubt. Kobe was the closest thing to, and you've been a resident out here long. You've been through the Kobe years, and you know Kobe was the closest thing to Jordan since Jordan. And Kobe even emulated Jordan with the gait and the sort of pigeon-toed walk and the wagging tongue, and he had all the mannerisms, the speech pattern. He tried to be Jordan, and he came pretty close. I don't think he was quite Jordan, but whoever was, he was the closest.
Well, at one point in 2001, you left the Chicago Tribune to be a guest host on the Jim Rome Show. And then when, I think 2002, you actually joined his Fox show. So now you're in TV.
TV, yep.
You made the transition. That was a big move. Were you enjoying TV more or the writing more?
At first, I was still a full-time writer, and I just did part-time television. and I became a regular on Jim Rome's show, but I could still keep my day job, so to speak, as a newspaper columnist. And then my biggest break was actually, another thank you, God, as we got toward 2003 and 4, it started becoming clear to me the newspaper business that I grew up in, the hallowed newspaper business, was starting to teeter and die because of this thing called the internet.
Yeah.
As you well know.
As I well know.
Yeah. And you were way ahead of the curve, and you saw this before anybody else saw it. And I had suspicions. And so when I had an opportunity, it was actually 2004, to go to a show called Cold Pizza on ESPN2. That was my first full-time gig where I actually left the newspaper business to take that job at ESPN and also continue to write columns for ESPN.com. So I felt like, oh, I'm still a regular columnist, but let's try daily television, morning television, on a show that was kind of loosely based on sports. It had a lot of pet segments and ballpark food segments and cigar segments and different things that were just peripherally attached to sports. And it was trying to be sort of the Good Morning America of sports. And I kept thinking early on in my tenure there, well, if you really want Good Morning America, you probably just would watch Good Morning America. But whatever. When I first got there, their ratings were literally zeros. They had no viewers, and they'd been on for, I think, 4 months at that point. And Mark Shapiro was running ESPN and called and said, hey, would you help come try to save my show? Because we sunk a lot of money into this because it was based in New York City. And the rent was high, and the mothership for ESPN was in Bristol, Connecticut, but they were trying to have these base shows in New York, and the main one was Cold Pizza, and they had invested huge money in the talent there, the staff there, the rental space there in the old New Yorker hotel. Not old, it's still there, but at 34th and 8th, and we just dove in head first and tried to see if anything would connect. And we started doing debate sports segments that were hardcore sports. And right away, you could see the ratings, they would start to spike each time we came on to do the debate segments with my partner, Woody Page, and Jay Crawford was our moderator. And it started to click and work. And they had a regime change at ESPN in 2006, I think, 7, maybe 2007. And they decided to pull every plug in New York, just cancel these shows, except for Cold Pizza, which they decided to, because it was making money, starting to rate, they moved it up to the mothership in Bristol, Connecticut in 2007 and just rebranded it as a show called First Take. They just put a new name on it, but we were still same format as we had in New York City with Cold Pizza.
I think what's interesting about this part of the story is that at the time that you're making this big transition to television, you are 55 years old.
Okay.
You're actually older than I am right now. So it just goes to show that it's never too late to get into your stride.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think that if you're not, successful by your 30s, that you should forget about it. No.
That's
in your mid-50s,
you're getting into your stride. I never thought about it.
Never thought about it.
I just never thought about it. I never thought, oh, I'm so lucky to be so old and getting this shot. I don't know. I've always been young in spirit and approach. And as my wife will tell you, even now, we'll walk our dog at the open air Century City Mall every Saturday. It's a dog parade, see a lot of people. And even though I wear my baseball cap and sunglasses, I do get recognized here and there. And she's always astounded at how the kids will come up to me, high schoolish kids, junior high-ish, middle schoolish kids. And and they all call me Skip and gravitate to me because they sense my spirit is so young, and they just treat me like I'm one of them because I am. And as she will tell you, she actually does have a child that she's raising me. So I still act like a child. So that's the God's truth. So I don't know. It's just something, my energy, my joy for sports, my passion for sports is supreme and extreme, and it just comes through the TV. And so age becomes irrelevant. And so I never really thought about it, but it's a good point. I guess I was really blessed to get that late start.
Well, on the Cold Pizza show, didn't you and Woody Page get into a fight?
No.
Over someone claiming they had more sex than the other person, or?
Oh, it was just a joke.
Or just a joke?
It wasn't a fight, but he was always bragging about the girls. In fact, he did have a lot of girlfriends. In fact, the car service would pick up Woody first in the morning and then pick me up second at our place at 54th and 8th. And so it would come down from where you used to live at Columbus Circle. Woody lived just above Columbus Circle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many mornings he would have a woman with him in the car, and he just met her that night. So he hadn't gone home yet. He was just going to the show. And this is at like 4:00 in the morning. So I don't know. We got into some back and forth on the air about who's had the most sex in his life. And I don't know, Woody was a big talker, so I challenged him because I think he was blowing a lot of smoke. Yeah.
Well, you and Charles Barkley, in multiple interviews, Barkley said that if he was ever terminally ill, he would kill you on live television, so he wouldn't have to serve a life sentence.
That's true.
Now, you've never actually had a face-to-face conversation with him?
Never.
Why does he hate you so much?
I don't know. You'd have to, I hope you get him as a guest.
Okay.
And ask him. I don't know, but I have on my podcast challenged him repeatedly to come on my podcast, and we've reached out and never gotten any response. But ultimately, my wife Ernestine and her mother is no longer with us, but back when she was, Evelyn, they were both very upset at Charles Barkley because this became repeated on all the biggest talk shows back in the day, the Jay Leno's and all the biggest stages. David Letterman, he did this. It was almost like his shtick, but it didn't come off as shtick. It came across as he would really like to kill me. And both my wife and her mother were upset at the possibility that he would plant this seed in some psycho's mind and the psycho would do his bidding. And it did disturb me after a while because I just couldn't understand it. He just disagreed with my opinions, but I always thanked him because he religiously watched me every single morning on both Cold Pizza and First Take, and then on Undisputed when I came to Fox. Every morning, he knew everything, and he would often respond specifically to what I had said, ending with, and I'd like to kill him.
Out of all the times you've been in the business this long, parties, events, award shows, you've never ran into Charles Barkley? I think I've been around Charles Barkley before.
Have you? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. Maybe at a Jordan party or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Not you, though, huh?
I just never crossed his path. I mean, I guess the closest, I did get nominated for an Emmy. What year was that? We'd just gone up to Connecticut, maybe 2010 or 11. And I was nominated in his category, so we were in the same auditorium, you know.
Okay.
Like,
that's close.
That's the close side. And he won. He and his show won. So he got me.
You got you.
Yeah.
Well, like you mentioned, Cold Pizza got rebranded as First Take. And that show started to take off. Lil Wayne was a guest on the show relatively early on.
Yeah, in about 2008.
Mm-hmm. And that set off a long friendship with you guys.
It did. Carter 3 had just dropped. Mm-hmm. And I had not gotten into Lil Wayne yet as an artist, and Carter 3 really got me. And his genius just shone through in Carter 3. And when we had a producer named Galen Gordon who somehow knew one of Wayne's people, and it clicked that Wayne was doing a concert in Westchester outside of New York City, and he agreed, busing at that point, to take his bus up. It's a 2-hour drive up to Bristol, Connecticut. And they came up, and I'm not sure he ever went to bed, but they just parked in the parking lot outside the building 4 in which we met at 7:30 a.m. And he was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed at 7:30, sitting opposite me at a long table in our first pre-show meeting. And I knew right away he was a sports savant. And in my life, I've never known a smarter sports fan than Wayne. And not only did I know it from the pre-show meeting, but as soon as we got him on air, he's just brilliant on sports. He's also brilliant on any lyric that he ever writes, because he's the greatest, to me, lyricist ever, and great performer. But his true passion is sports. So we connected on the sports level. And then after the show, he had so much fun, he took me out to the bus, because he's got a little recording studio in the bus. And I got to sit in it, and he actually was working on a song that he executed again for me in the little booth. And we just hit it off. And he and my wife, Ernestine, are very close. She's like big sister to him. I'm not sure I'm big brother. I'm just his friend. And I don't have a better friend in life than him. I have one from my high school years who I'm very close with. But,
wow.
But Wayne is right there with my friend Craig Humphreys from childhood.
So Lil Wayne is your best friend?
He's one of two.
One of two best friends.
They would be equal, but
wow.
if I had...
Well, the other friend is from high school, and you got Lil Wayne.
I got Lil Wayne, I'm okay. I'm good. And by the way, my best friend's son, named Sam Humphreys, became the biggest Lil Wayne fan in high school, and I was able to connect Sam to Wayne, and he got to come out here and attend a concert and go backstage. Anyway, it was just the greatest thing ever. But Wayne, if I were in need, in trouble, he would be the first person I would call.
Wow.
And Ernestine and I like to, on various Saturdays every couple of months, we go out here in Southern California to where Wayne lives, and we just hang out, and it's usually four hours worth. And it's funny, we don't eat, we don't drink. He might smoke, but but we just talk. We literally sit, and Ernestine participates, and there'll be some sports talk that she won't be that into, but she knows the big principles, and she has strong opinions about a lot of NBA players. And mostly we just talk about life, media, the entertainment world, music, concerts, his life. I don't know, we just talk, and it just goes all over the place, and it's just the most fun we ever have. And it's beautiful. And then the other thing is, Wayne and I text a lot about sports. And it's almost, it becomes like a, can you top this text chain of boom, 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 boom. And he's obviously a brilliant writer, and I would like to think I'm a pretty good writer and pretty clever myself. And so the chains, I've thought about, maybe someday I could put them all together in a book, because they're very readable and very entertaining, because they're so smart on his part. And I'm pretty good at sports too. And so the wisdom of it and the competitive cleverness of the text chain, I think people would be astounded at.
Well, leading up to 2009, Stephen A. Smith is at ESPN, and you guys form a friendship. But then in 2009, ESPN drops Stephen A. Smith.
They did.
You said this was the dumbest thing ever in ESPN history.
It was. I think that's been validated.
Right, because 2 years later, he comes back and he becomes your co-host on First Take.
He did.
With Carrie Champion moderating. But what happened to Carrie?
I don't know. She moved on. I don't know what happened. I've kind of lost touch with her.
Okay. Well, there was some interesting moments on First Take during that era.
Yeah. By the way, we started on the old Jim Rome show in 2002. And in 2003, Jim left. That was called Fox Sports Net back in the day. And all of a sudden they had an opening for a show, late afternoon show, and the producer, John Johnston, had a brilliant idea. How about if I pair Skip and Stephen A. in a show? And we did the pilot, and it was going to be called Sports in Black and White. And it was a really good pilot. And they ran down out of the control room and said, we could put this on the air tonight. And somebody upstairs, I don't know who, how, why, what, didn't like Stephen A. and thought he was just a little too much for daily television. And I'm like, no, he's perfect. And I knew we had a rapport you can't buy, you can't find, you can't teach, you can't coach. And because of that rapport, when he did get pushed out at ESPN, and he was gone for a couple of years, I spent much of that 2-year period campaigning for him to be brought back. And finally they brought him back, and they sort of made him fight his way through and earn his way back to Bristol. He had to go to New York, ESPN New York for a while and do New York radio. And then they let him come on my show, which at that point was First Take, once a week for one segment. And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Our producer at the time was Jamie Horowitz. I said, I need a permanent partner. We had a rotation of guest debaters. Stephen A. one of those. And so finally in 2011, actually 12, the calendar was turning. He became my permanent partner that I had pushed to have.
Well, there were some interesting moments that happened on the show. There was the whole Chris Carter, Tim Tebow situation.
Yep. There was everybody in Tim Tebow.
Right.
I mean, it was a daily battle over Tim Tebow, including Stephen A. and a lot of ex-players.
Right. So Carter said that Tebow would never be a successful NFL starter. And then you said that's why you never won a Super Bowl. And allegedly during the break, he told you, if you ever say that again, I'll punch you.
I don't know that. I don't remember that. I've said this publicly. I like Chris a lot, and I ended up working with him at Fox and trying to make him permanent fixture on my new show, Undisputed. So I don't remember anything about that. Chris said that, and if that's what he remembers, that's fine, but I don't remember it, and we were totally cool, and he was on many times through that period on First Take.
Well, you and Richard Sherman went at it.
Oh, did we? Now that I remember.
You try to say that you're more accomplished in media than Sherman, and he said, I'm better at life than you.
He did.
I'm a Stanford graduate. I'm better than you.
That was funny. Yep. And ironically, I ended up working on a daily basis with Richard at Undisputed at Fox and liked him a lot. And we sifted through and sorted through everything that happened that day. And all I knew was we were actually doing an audition type show in the afternoons. It was just half hour. And Stephen A. was remote. I think he was in Philly at that point. So he's not in studio. He's just on the remote shot. I'm in studio. Richard's remote. And so it's a little bit awkward, the connection among the three of us. I think Carrie Champion was our moderator in studio with me. And Richard's people had asked for him to come on that first take, the half-hour first take in the afternoon, because we were auditioning for an afternoon slot that Stephen A. badly wanted because he didn't like to get up early. And we were very close to getting that. So I knew we had one more show before we were going to go on vacation. So Richard's people said he didn't want to do anything controversial because he had been very controversial. He had gone after Tom Brady after a game, and he had gone back and forth with Darrelle Revis and Roddy White, and he was actually on sort of a national campaign to put himself, Richard, on the map by challenging people. But in this case, he told our producer, no controversy. I don't want to do anything. I just want to talk off-season football. Okay, fine. So I got blindsided by this, and Stephen A. was definitely blindsided and remote. So it was pretty awkward for a little while, but I hung in with Richard, and I tried not to lose my temper because we were one show away from getting this afternoon slot. Unfortunately, we failed to get it, probably because of this incident, but I actually got high marks for how I responded and handled Richard at that point from the people upstairs. They thought I kept my cool, my composure, and kept it in bounds. So I actually enjoyed the give and take of it and thought I defended myself as admirably as I could without getting mad.
Well, one of the things you did during this time was you started calling Kevin Durant Mr. Unreliable. And this kind of stuck.
Did it? I don't know that it did.
Well, I guess Bill Self actually shouted you out and said Skip was right about KD.
Okay, but you're a little out of order there because I was Durant's biggest booster on ESPN when he was at Texas playing college basketball.
Okay.
So I kept predicting that Kevin Durant would win multiple scoring titles in the NBA. He has won 4 and won an MVP. And the guys I was on Cold Pizza with, Woody and Jay Crawford and other analysts that we had, just laughed at me about Kevin Durant, saying, that beanpole, how could you defend? Because he was very thin at that point, still is pretty slim. Some people call him the Slim Reaper. But I was the biggest fan and defender of Kevin. And finally, Bill Self, in an interview that he was doing on Cold Pizza that wasn't one of our debate segments, volunteered. He said, hey, I've been watching, and what Skip keeps saying about Kevin Durant is correct. He's going to dominate the NBA, which he obviously has. But, I mean, the Mr. Unreliable didn't stick because it was just off some bad playoff series that he had with the Thunder when Russell Westbrook had been hurt. And I said, in this series, he's been Mr. Unreliable, but that never stuck. And I've defended Kevin for years and years in pro basketball.
Well, at one point in 2016, you actually leave ESPN.
I did.
Why?
Because the man who had given me the opportunity at ESPN in 2011, Jamie Horowitz, had the guts, the career-risking guts, to turn First Take into an all-debate show. 2 hours of debate. A lot of people said it would never work and that Jamie would lose his job over this decision, and maybe me too. It was built around me with a rotation of debaters. It not only worked, it set ratings records. So Jamie gave me that opportunity, and at this point, Jamie had taken over at Fox Sports 1 and basically said to me, I need you to come out here, and if you don't, I'm not sure we can make it. So, somewhat to my wife's chagrin, because she's a native New Yorker, I just said, I want to try to go help put this network on the national map, because I had definitely put First Take on the map, and for that matter, put Cold Pizza on the map, or helped. And it was just another big challenge Plus, I do love LA. I'd worked in LA for 3 years, and I said, if I ever get the chance, I'm going back to LA. So I did, in part for Jamie and in part for me. And we did. We put FS1 on the map right away. It became a thing with the show called Undisputed and my partner, Shannon Sharpe. And it was great. It was a great run that we had. And we set ratings records. And I'm very proud of what we did. So as I look back, it was the right thing to do. I hated leaving Stephen A., but I think he understood that I just wanted the challenge after the great run I'd had with him. And I still leave the door open. Who knows, maybe someday I'll work with Stephen A. again. But at that point, I needed to go try this, and I did.
Well, you were allegedly offered $4 million a year to stay with ESPN.
Yeah, that's
about right.
Yeah, that's ballpark.
But the deal for Undisputed was allegedly a $32 million deal at $8 million a year.
Well, that came later. That was my second deal.
Oh, that was your second deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first 4 years was, I don't know what it was. I don't know, but it was it was actually considerably more than ESPN had offered me at that point.
Okay. So you leveled up by taking that deal.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. And now you have a show with Shannon Sharpe. Now, you guys have worked together before, right? Wasn't he like a guest on your show sometimes?
He was a guest on First Take.
Exactly.
When Stephen A. was on vacation a couple of times. Yep.
Right. Lil Wayne does the intro song.
He did. He did a song called No Mercy that he says he gets requests at concerts to do No Mercy. That's how good that song is. It's all-time great. He did a second one when we had kind of a reboot of Undisputed in 23, 24. And it was called Good Morning. But as great as it was, the one that's legendary is No Mercy. And he wrote it, recorded it, did the music video, and we used it as our open every morning.
Well, by 2017, Undisputed beats First Take in the ratings. How did that feel?
I don't, okay, remember, the issue became that when I left, First Take, or the man who was running ESPN, John Skipper, did something with First Take that I'd always wanted, was he moved it off ESPN2 to big ESPN. Mm-hmm. So
Max Kellerman became the host, right?
He did.
Yeah.
And the eyeballs available on big ESPN are, I don't know what it is, 10-1 for ESPN2.
Right.
So they have a natural built-in advantage every day. And I don't know for a fact that we beat them. Maybe on some days we beat them, but we were very competitive with them. And there were a couple of Cowboy Mondays, one after a Cowboy playoff loss to San Francisco and Dallas, that we just shattered our rating record. And I don't know if it beat them, but it was really good. They gave me a plaque for it that I have in my living room. So the point was, we were really good, and we were a threat to them, and we made FS1 viable. We made it a thing. We made it a talking point for the national media. So of that, I'm proud.
Well, there are some interesting moments on this show. You were calling Russell Westbrook Westbrick.
Yes, I called him that often. I did, because he deserved it. Especially when LeBron campaigned for him to be a Los Angeles Laker, come back to where he grew up. That year, he led the league in turnovers, and he finished dead last in three-point shooting, and that is a lethal combination for a quote-unquote point guard. And pretty soon, LeBron was campaigning to get Russell Westbrook the hell out of L.A.,
And you gotta force yourself to say it right.
I know, but I'd started calling him that back in his Oklahoma City days, because he was a horrible three-point shooter and a high-volume three-point shooter. And it got so bad in his year and a half or so with the Lakers. I don't know if you remember this, but at Staples Center, when he would go up to shoot a 3-point shot, you could just hear the, like, oh no, don't shoot. But that was Russell Westbrook. He didn't love it. His wife didn't love it, but it's what it was.
Okay.
And the way to shut me up is to make 3-point shots or quit taking 3-point shots. And he's gotten lately a little better as he's at the end of his run, but for many years he was at the very bottom of the barrel of 3-point shooters, and he's led the league in turnovers 5 times and finished second 3 times.
Have you ever run into each other?
No, he occasionally plays at the golf course where I play at Brentwood Country Club, and I've seen him from a distance. And I know a friend of his, DeAndre Jordan, pretty well, but I've never actually bumped into him, but I certainly wouldn't be afraid to.
Okay. You started calling Kawhi Leonard number 2.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of it is because he left the Spurs, which is your favorite team.
I was a big Spurs fan back in the day. I've become more of an Oklahoma City fan because I'm from there, but and I never was the biggest Popovich fan during those great days. I was a Tim, Tony, and Manu fan, and a Kawhi fan, and then he quit on the Spurs and sort of quit his way out of town, went to Toronto, won a championship, and it was just hard for me to stomach. So because he wore number 2, I thought very cleverly, I started calling him number 2, as in number 2 in the bathroom, because it worked. That's what he was. He was number 2 to me. So, but I've come around on Kawhi as a Clipper. I'm still a fan of his, and he's still a great player who works really hard, and he's got 2 bad knees and that are really slowing him down, or he could have been all-time great.
Well, you and Shannon got into it a couple times on the show.
Many times.
Well, many times, but there were some times that kind of stood out. There's the "it's my turn," that moment.
I don't know. We probably had 100 of those, seriously.
Right. But then there's the "put your glasses back on" moment. And a lot of people had a problem with that.
I don't know if they did or not. I don't follow what other people say. So this is news to me.
Right. Well, some people, I don't know, people try to put race into situations a lot of times.
This is not racial at all.
Right. I agree with you, but the way social media takes to it,
I can't.
It ended up being like kind of almost like a racial thing, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but I've always worked with black partners my whole life. So I don't think anybody who knows me would ever think that the race had a thing to do with any of this. Shannon and I just competed every day. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And I am proud and stubborn to a fault. And I love to compete on live television with sports opinions because I believe in mine and I back them up and I stand by them. And as the Lil Wayne theme song said, and you don't back down. You just don't back down. And so, sure, we're going to get into it back and forth. We got into it every day in every way. That was the appeal of that show. It was very different than the one I did with Stephen A. because we're both journalists background and neither of us played pro sports, college sports for that matter. I think Stephen A. played a touch, but the point was with Shannon, now I'm matching opinions with a Pro Football Hall of Famer. What do you have? 3? Do you have 3 Super Bowl rings? I think now I'm losing track. 2 Super Bowl rings. Anyway, but he's got Super Bowl rings and never lost a Super Bowl. So it's like the ultimate
3
challenge. 3. He's got 3. Yeah, I thought yeah. 3 Super Bowl rings. So ultimate challenge for me.
98, 99, and 2001.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. And he won with Baltimore, the last one. And so we would get into it every day. This went on for years. We were together 7.5 years, I think. So
off camera, were you guys friends at all?
Got along really well. I wouldn't say we were friends as in social friends. We didn't socialize, but Stephen A. is my brother. I mean, he's just my brother, like literally more of my brother than my actual brother was. And that's like Wayne. And we work together very well. Probably we work together better than Stephen A. and I work together, as far as we're just in sync. And Shannon is just he works so hard, so prepared, so on time, so ready to go. We had a great working relationship. And I mean, I underscore the word great, because it functioned like a well-oiled machine at the highest level.
Well, it seems like not too long after the "put your glasses back on" comment, Shannon Sharpe actually leaves. He leaves Undisputed in June 2023.
He did.
And it seemed like there was some bad blood, because I remember I watched this one interview. It was at some conference. He was on stage, and they asked him whether he could ever work with you before again. And he said, "No, I realized that I can't make money with Skip Bayless anymore. I can't work with him anymore." He realized that. And it seemed like it was based around...
He made a lot of money with it.
But have you heard some of that? Some of these comments?
Nope, I don't follow it. I only know that he came to me 2 days before he was scheduled to leave and said, "Is there any way we can make this work?" And I said, "Yes, there is." And I tried to go upstairs and fight his battle for him. And I was just told that bridge is burned. And I don't know what happened. I don't know the gory details of what happened behind the scenes, but that working relationship with Fox had ended, and they did give him his podcast, which was great for Shannon as part of the departure settlement. And I don't know. I fought for him because I was hoping that, because I was going to leave at the end of my contract. I had whatever it was to go, maybe 3/4 of a year left on my contract. So the point was that I wanted both of us to serve out our simultaneous contracts and just finish together at Fox and go our separate ways. And I had to go back to his dressing room before his last show and just say, I tried, and I did. I fought for him because I didn't want to start over at Fox, and I had to start over a new show in my final year of my contract, which I didn't love having to do.
Well, there's the whole Damar Hamlin tweet.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly did you say in that tweet?
What did I say?
Yeah.
Nothing bad. You want me to read it? Here, I got it right here.
Yeah, go ahead. You actually brought it with you?
Heck yes, because I always get asked about it, and this is the one that I get condemned for, and I never understand anything about it. So I had a series of live tweets. I tweet during football games. This is Monday Night Football, Buffalo at Cincinnati. And I tweeted, the first one was, "Not exactly sure what happened to Damar Hamlin. Players on both teams are shaken. Ambulance out on field. CPR administered. Can't remember play being stopped for this length of time. Just said a prayer for him and his family." You like that tweet? Okay, thank you. Next tweet. "I've seen so many horrific injuries suffered on football fields, yet never have I seen a reaction like this. In every other situation I witnessed or covered, the game always went on fairly quickly. The attitude was, hey, that's football. For these players, this was all caps different." Okay, so this is real time. I'm typing as I'm watching the game. Next tweet. "No doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game, but how? Question mark. This late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, ... which suddenly seems so irrelevant." Then I wait, I don't know, the game ends up going on, of course, and we're not sure what happened to Damar Hamlin. And my boss called me at home as I'm watching, the game had just ended, and he said, "What just happened? One of your tweets just blew up." And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Did you get hacked?" I said, I I don't think so. And he said, well, I'm reading your last tweet and there's nothing wrong with it. I said, I don't know. And he said, well, maybe you should try one more tweet just to make sure everybody understands what you're saying. And I said, well, what do you mean? What did I say wrong? And he read it again. He said, nothing. By the way, somebody very high up in the Fox hierarchy the next day told me that all of my tweets were, quote, brilliant. They were perfectly timed and right exactly. I'm doing real time what's going on the field. So I tweet again. This is 15 minutes later. Nothing is more important than that young man's health. That was the point of my last tweet. I'm sorry if that was misunderstood, but his health is all that matters. Again, everything else is irrelevant, which I'd used in the previous tweet. I prayed for him, as I already had tweeted that I did. And I'm actually one of those who actually prays. I don't just speak it, I pray it. So I prayed for him, and I will continue to. I can't be any more decisive. I can't be any more fair. I can't be any more compassionate. And the tweet in question, I'm saying no doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game, which they were. This is being argued back and forth. But how? This late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, which it was. And there was a big bombshell story on ESPN.com a couple of weeks later that said they were very close to just saying play. Because in the history of professional football, you have to understand this had never happened before, ever. There
right,
never
he was
been
going
a game,
into cardiac arrest.
But nobody was sure of that at that point.
Yeah.
And then it gets relayed to the league office, and they're saying, oh, my God, well, should we try? Should we not? And I said, which suddenly seems so irrelevant. So I'm putting myself in the minds of the NFL decision makers as the game unfolds. So I had no ill intent. I don't get it. And nobody else, I've asked many people I know, do you understand this? And nobody understands it. I don't know. It's just the internet lynch mob that runs wild. And I guess I got lynched.
Well, I mean, Shannon Sharpe, and you talked about it, and I guess he felt it was insensitive, that it should have been more focused on, Damar's health at that point.
Yeah.
And he asked you to take the tweet down. He said, I'm not going to take it down because I stand by what I tweeted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of went on. And that, they say, was part of the reason why Shannon left, and and so forth, along with some other reasons. And
I don't know. I have no idea what he was thinking. I just know he didn't come to work the next day in protest.
Really?
Yes, and that the higher ups at Fox were very unhappy with him, as was Lil Wayne, who texted me during the show and said, hey, if I'd known, I would have come in and sat across from you. So I don't know. And then the next day he came back, and I was told that he would let it go and just talk about an injury that his brother Sterling had suffered that pretty much did end his career. I worked with Sterling at ESPN, and we came on live, and Shannon went after me about the tweet. And I told him that nobody upstairs had any problem. That's the God's truth. Nobody at Fox had any problem. So if you can find somebody who had a problem with it at Fox, you're way ahead of me. But I didn't know of anybody, and I certainly wasn't scolded or suspended or penalized in any way, shape, or form for that tweet.
Well, that next year, Undisputed abruptly ended. Did you know it was going to end, or was it a shock?
I mean, it was just because Shannon was out. Yeah.
Okay, and you guys couldn't find a good co-host, basically.
No. Well, no, not a good co-host. Well, I mean, we just had to start that. We were going to have to replace Shannon.
Well, right. Well, there was a rumor that you were upset with the producers for not finding the right co-host at that point.
No, I wasn't upset at all.
Okay.
No, they just said we took a break so that they could put together a whole new show with 3 new co-hosts. But there was I wasn't upset with anybody. I mean, we were just going to start over. I was upset that Shannon was gone.
Okay.
For sure.
So then Shannon goes to ESPN,
mm-hmm.
and he also launches Club Shay Shay.
Yep.
2024 was a huge year. He had the Cat Williams interview. What did you think about the Cat Williams interview, by the way?
It was great.
Yeah. I mean, that shook up the world.
It did.
It shook up the world.
Good for Shannon.
But then, after all that success, then came the sexual assault civil lawsuit. What did you think about that when it first dropped?
Which one?
Well, the one that he ultimately settled. There was multiple ones?
I don't know anything. I don't follow it. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. That's his business. I don't know anything about it. I don't follow the internet stuff.
Got it. But ultimately, he ended up getting fired from ESPN because of what came out in that lawsuit. How did you feel about that?
I don't know any details of it. I don't know enough to comment on it.
Fair enough. Have you maintained any sort of contact with Shannon Sharpe?
No, I have not. But we weren't close off the field. But I could still, could I work with him? Sure, I could. Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with him. I'm telling you the God's truth. We had a good show. It's hard to work with somebody competitively for 7.5 years. And we did great things together.
Well, you and Stephen A. Smith continued your relationship, though.
Very much so.
And he continued to do well and level up. What did you think about the whole confrontation with LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith, considering your history with both of them?
Well, I'm not a LeBron fan, so it didn't surprise me. I didn't like it. I didn't like the ambush side of it, that this happened during a play stoppage. It was a dead ball situation, so it's finite. The clock's ticking, and it appeared to me that LeBron didn't know. I should put it this way: LeBron knew that the clock was ticking where Stephen A. wouldn't have time to respond to him. So it's just a blindside situation where he goes and said something to him about, don't talk about my son in the basketball context, that whatever Stephen A. said about being critical of Bronny. And Stephen A. didn't have a chance to respond because plays started and LeBron wheels and has to go play basketball. So I thought it was, weak on LeBron's part.
I think Stephen A. said that if LeBron had put his hands on him, that he would have punched him. And he would have lost afterwards, but still, he would have punched him. That would have been an interesting thing to see.
I think Stephen A. would have lost to 6'9", 260.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
As much as I think Stephen A. could defend himself, I'm not sure he could win that one.
No, I don't think so. But what do you think about the whole concept of don't talk about my son, but your son is a Laker at this point? We're not talking about just your child that's playing high school basketball. He's officially a Laker, so why can you not talk about him?
I don't know. Good question.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Stephen A. has every right to talk about whether Bronny can play professional basketball or not.
What is your take on Bronny's basketball skills? Do you think that if his dad wasn't LeBron James, that he'd be playing in the NBA?
I don't. Even though he's had some explosions that surprised me pleasantly in G League games, I still haven't seen enough from him on the pro level. And I was one who thought, I'm a big fan of Bronny as a human because you want to talk about pressure. You're named LeBron James Jr., and you have to grow up with that. And he seems like completely level-headed, even-keeled, doesn't take himself maybe even seriously enough. And he didn't get his father's height. I don't know, what do they list him at? 6'2", he might be 6'3"-ish, 6'2.5". And
yeah, 6'2".
6'2".
Yeah,
He might
my
be
height.
6'2".
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not playing.
Exactly. And I was hoping in his rookie year that he could find, 10, 12 minutes a game opposite his father, because he seemed perfect in the fit of 3 and D for his father, where he could just play defense and shoot threes. And yet in his early stints in the G League and in pro basketball, and certainly in that first summer league, the one thing he couldn't do was shoot threes. He was a horrible three-point shooter. Now he started to make them more and more, and he made one the other night in the game, an assist from LeBron, which is beautiful to watch. But he's been timid in games, and I guess that's where you're LeBron James Jr., but too many times he's just, like his father's doing now, just runs to the corner and stands in the corner. And I wanted him to be dynamic and take over games and assert himself because he's talented, and yet defensively, I don't see a demon. You know, I don't see somebody who locks you up and locks you down. I haven't seen that yet. So I've been mildly disappointed in him after I thought he was actually going to be a rotation player for the Lakers where he would get, you know, I'm talking about 10, 12, maybe on a good night, 15 minutes. It's a lot. And be like Jake LaRavia is for the Lakers now. Be that kind. But Jake LaRavia is like 6'7", you know. And so he's a little smallish, and he hasn't played with the aggression that I thought he was worthy of playing with so far. So I had no problem with what Stephen A. said about him.
I agree. I was actually surprised that he really got out of character that way. I mean, as long as LeBron has been in the media since, probably junior high, if not even elementary school, at some point you just get over stuff. Yeah. You know, like me and you, we literally have thousands of people bashing us every day, right? On social media or in YouTube videos or whatever. And we're nowhere near a LeBron level in terms of superstardom.
Absolutely.
So, I was actually surprised at his reaction, you know, knowing what was going to happen. This was at an NBA game, cameras everywhere. There's going to be the biggest news for weeks to come.
Agreed.
I guess when it comes to your kids, though.
No, it's your kid. It's your kid, and I get that for LeBron because fathers are so protective.
But, you know, you want your son to play in the NBA. Absolutely. You pushed for your son to play in the NBA.
And here he is.
And this is what comes with it.
I agree. I agree.
Well, before I let you go, you have an interesting top 10 NBA player list. Number 1, Jordan. That's
times 100. It's like he should be 1 through 5, but go ahead.
Number 2 is Magic.
Yep. Greatest point guard ever, greatest winner ever, winning time, Showtime Lakers, as dynamic a leader as there ever has been in sports.
Number 3, Shaq.
Was the most dominant offensive and defensive force I've ever seen for about a 3-year period when he was in some shape. When he stayed in some shape for the dynastic Lakers of Shaq and Kobe.
Number 4, Kareem.
Just Kareem. He was cap for them and was the greatest scorer ever until LeBron managed to last 23 years.
Number 5, Tim Duncan. You don't always see this name this high up on the list. And there's some people underneath it. They're going to have a problem with this, but okay, let's keep going.
Look, he should have 6 championship rings, if not for a Ray Allen shot in Game 6 of the 2013 NBA Finals that saved LeBron a big L, another loss in a championship series in a finals.
Right. You said this before. Number 6, Bill Russell.
I mean, just what a winner as even a player-coach winner. And if you just look at championships, he should be number 1 on this list. But it was a little bit before modern times, but still, he's Mr. Russell, and he belongs there.
Well, you have Kobe as number 7.
Okay.
So you put Tim Duncan over Kobe.
Tim Duncan was the leader of a dynasty, and Kobe did have Shaq, and Duncan was it for those Spurs. I know there was Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and ultimately Kawhi Leonard, but in the end, the leader of that dynasty, just the way Brady was the leader of the Patriots NFL dynasty, was Tim Duncan. He belongs at 5.
Number 8, Larry Bird.
It's very close between Kobe and Bird, but I'll give Kobe the slight edge.
So you would say it's close. Okay.
Well, I mean, Larry Bird, championship-wise, they just, they kept running into Magic in the Showtime Lakers. So 2 of the greatest teams ever kept trading finals. And Larry Bird is a clutch shooter and a playmaker. Obviously, by far the greatest white player ever, because there's never been anything close to Larry Bird since Larry Bird.
What about Luka? Think Luka has a chance?
You know, Luka plays no defense. Larry Bird was a steals champion and a ball deflector, and Luka's getting a little bit better. Luka wasn't near the shooter that Larry Bird was. He isn't near the shooter that Larry Bird was.
No, that's true.
Because Luka's a 35% career three-point shooter. I know they didn't emphasize it back in Bird's day, but as a clutch shooter, Larry Bird was deadly, just deadly, and I don't see that from Luka.
By the way, everyone I've talked to, including the ultimate trash talkers like Gary Payton, have always said that Larry Bird was the worst trash talker in NBA history. Well, as much of a trash talker as you are, you actually said there's someone who's actually greater than you. And that is Larry Bird.
Absolutely.
Or you said that not only would he talk shit to you, but he would tell you what he's going to do to you on the court. He's like, I'm going to shoot this from here. Boom. Oh, now I'm going to I'm going to bust your ass here. Larry Bird, of all people, you would think. But he was the truth.
He was, let me tell you something. People always talk about great basketball players, and they don't never mention him to be up in that round when they made the Magics, the Jordans, the Kobe's and stuff like that. But Larry Bird was cold. Mm-hmm. I don't think nobody ever could get out with him. You ask Magic. That's why Magic had a run, and he was mad when he had to retire in 92 because of what he was going to be missing with Larry Bird. Mm-hmm. And then you remember Larry Bird took 2 more years, and then he quit because he said his main guy who he wanted to play against is gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, they had video games. Magic versus Bird. That was the big rivalry.
You remember when Magic went to Larry Bird's town and they made the Pepsi, what was it, a Pepsi commercial or something like that? Yeah. And they did all of that. Man, Larry Bird was shooting anywhere. If you think about how many times he won a championship and what he was doing and what he was averaging, people don't understand. They was like, oh, he was slow. He wasn't, he was just smart. You know what I'm saying? He was smart and he can get it. He can get it done. He wasn't MVP all them times and all the All-Stars all them times for nothing.
He would tell you what he was going to do to you, and he would do it.
Then do it. I've always heard this.
Yep.
I've always heard this. And Gary Payton was vicious.
Yep.
And he would fight you.
That's
but he
true.
said that he couldn't hang with Larry Bird when it comes to that.
That's it.
And then Will Chamberlain, number 10.
The numbers are in some other stratosphere from Wilt. Every number is just like, what? How did he do that? And again, he was playing against a lot of undersized white guys in his day, but he was the Big Dipper, and he was a track and field athlete at 7'1" at Kansas. So even though Bill Russell owned him psychologically when push came to shove in big playoff series and finals, but still, I've got Wilt on the list just on sheer 100-point game numbers.
Well, I actually messed up. I forgot to mention number 9, which is
LeBron
James.
Oh, I thought you just purposely skipped over LeBron. Well, I do put LeBron number 9, and I don't think he's better than Bird, and I definitely don't think he was better than Kobe, and then the rest of the guys are all bigger, except Magic was 6'9" also. So he's right where he belongs, number 9.
Some people put Allen Iverson on this list.
Yeah,
Why would you not put him on the list?
Too small.
Too small?
Yeah. And
no championships?
He got to 1, and they lost.
He didn't really have
5.
a team around him, though.
He didn't. He had a great coach in Larry Brown, but they didn't have much of a team, and he was great. He dissipated some of his years because he had off-field issues, and yet he was the gutsiest little player we've ever seen. Ounce for ounce, inch for inch, the gutsiest.
100%.
Oh.
Had the most heart of anyone
on that. The biggest heart
on that court. Well, Skip, man, I appreciate you for coming and do the show.
You got it.
And you have a show with my man Gilbert Arenas.
Yes.
That's who actually connected us.
Yes.
And you have your own podcast.
I do. And I do Arena Gridiron with Underdog, and then I do Gil's Arena basketball show with Underdog. Yeah.
Truly an honor to sit
Thank
down
you.
with you.
Honor
Wish you all the
to
best.
Be with you. Thank you, Vlad.
Peace.
Okay.